there's also a real antipathy for labor in that class. They think they're the proletariat because, they're renters. They don't really believe in work. Like, that's why they're socialists. And I think that is that's not a proletariat, because there's a lot of working class people who are working 2-3 jobs, but people who really believe in work and really believe in America. And there's this conflation happening, because I feel like on the right, the discourse is really focused on something like turning point. These are the young men of the next generation. Those kids are all in college. What percentage of college students do you think are conservatives? That's not the right's constituency. And then, by the way, this is just another thing I just keep thinking about. Then they're surprised that those people are following Nick Fuentes. It's because they're not conservatives, they're progressives. You know what I mean? I feel like there's just this erasure happening, because the right is the working class, but the people who are speaking for young men are just, I feel really divorced from what actual working class male life is like. Okay, do you guys agree with me or not?
Completely agree with you. And this is something we've been talking about a lot and going through some of his videos and explaining hey, look, this is the rhetoric, but let me tell you, I'm not saying he's Hitler, I'm not saying he's Mao, I'm not saying he's Lenin, but he sounds like Lenin, he sounds like Mao.
Okay.
This is Rudy Dutska's Long March Through the Institutions. These are things, they're not new. These are things that have been tried, and these are things that have been practiced before. And he's a neo-Marxist is what he is, 100%. He deals in sophistry, he deals in collectivism. This will be a fun conversation, and I'm going to start it right now, but I'm going to tell you, you're going to enjoy this.
Okay.
So I told a friend of ours, a mutual friend of Chris and I's, that you were coming on the podcast again. And he's like, I'm really surprised you're talking to her. And I was like, why? He's like, well, she talks a lot about class consciousness, and I'm pretty sure she's a closeted Marxist. And I was like, have you really listened to her? I was like, I've read both of her books. I don't think I'd call her a closeted Marxist. He's like, yeah, but class consciousness is a Marxist ideology. I was like, not in the way that she talks about it. This isn't, class consciousness is the engine of history sort of thing, right? So I thought you may have fun with that. And what would you say to somebody calling you a closeted Marxist because you talk about class and populism?
It's such a great question. I used to say, yeah, I'm a Marxist in the way that Donald Trump is, I stand with the
Right.
working class,
I
and
love that.
I want to elevate them. I think Marx was right. His diagnosis of the problem was pretty apt. We do have a class divide in America, although the AI revolution, I think, is really changing that a lot, because the over-credentialed elites, with their, multiple degrees, they're kind of now on the decline. And Trump is super invested in creating avenues for upward mobility for working class people without a college degree. So I think we are seeing a real shift there. But yeah, I think, to me, I'm on the side of the working class, and the thing is that in America, working class people are capitalists. They don't want socialism, they don't want Marxism, they barely want unions, I'm
Right.
pretty pro-union, but most only 6% of the private sector is unionized. And I think, when you ask people, how come you don't want to join a union? To me, it's obvious, you get a lot of bargaining power out of being in a union. To be a single person fighting for rights against a corporation, it's very hard. But people, I think, also feel well, the union is good at protecting the underachievers, but what if you're an overachiever? Then the union holds you down, and you can't be judged just based on your merits. And there's something about that feels really un-American, I think. So yeah, I guess I do think class is kind of at the root of everything, but I think Marx's answers were pretty wrong. I'm very religious. He hated religion, and so I'm not a fan of his solutions, but I would say the problems, when you treat the working class, when you treat labor, when you treat the people we all actually rely on to survive like garbage, your democracy is going to fail and your society is going to fail. if you treat journalists with the contempt that they deserve, your society is going to be much better, actually. So
Coming from a journalist, right?
I think that you're absolutely correct too. It's so interesting though, because in the past, one of the reasons that Marxism was never able to, I'm preaching to the choir with this one, Batya, like obviously it's not to insult your intelligence, but it's like the idea was you weren't locked in a class in the United States. You had the ability, you had that upward trajectory, the American dream, like whatever you want to call it. You may have been born to a lower class family, and I actually was, but that didn't have to determine your future. You had the ability to break through. I think what a lot of people are starting to come to the realization of, even if they can't articulate it, is that because the divides are getting wider, that it's becoming more rigid, and people are feeling like they're becoming locked into the class that they were born into.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I'm not going to be able, this is my lot in life. To your thing that you say is so anti-American, and I think that's what people are feeling, even if they can't like speak it. You know what I mean?
Totally.
Well, and to your point, Chris, the rampant crony capitalism that we talk about all the time and private equity is a part of that. So when people see the billionaire class, right, to keep with this conversation, they're buying up homes and they're buying up land and they're building forever rent apartment complexes, and you're never going to be able to own a home, and the sort of mobility that you get from having a mortgage and paying it off and having a home, and the equity you build and the way you're able to pass it on, like these things kill the middle class. And so they're blaming, oh, well, that's capitalism. That's, it's end stage capitalism. So we need to try something else, even though there are examples of socialism being tried and it doesn't work. And then to your other point that you said before, Batya, about AI and the sort of way it's playing into classism, like how many people were told even 20 years ago, go learn to code. It's going to be the up and coming thing. Go learn how to be a cybersecurity engineer. And then today, right, the Chinese were able to hack into Anthropic's code for Claude, and it was a fully autonomous AI hack into Claude, and it spoofed itself as a cybersecurity auditor, and it let it in, and then it did a bunch of reconnaissance. And then obviously AI is getting rid of the coding class, right? So even some of these things that were upward mobility, like you tended to expect to get paid well for being a coder, and now that's really sort of disappearing in a lot of ways, and there are way too many people in that. But this is a problem we're going to have to confront, and it's something that a lot of people feel disillusioned with the American dream over. And I think that like with Seattle, you're in New York City, Zoran Mamdani, right? You're there all the time. They are willing to try this out because they feel like the system has failed them, and they're being promised all of these things that are really answers to their problem the way they see them, because it has to do with your survivability and your income and affordability, all these other things. And so they're a symptom of a larger problem. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, and then of course, don't forget the H-1B visa program, which
Mm-hmm.
basically, drove the smartest Americans out of STEM, because all
Yeah.
of these, 71% of them are Indians. The
Yeah.
remainder are Chinese, came in here and took those STEM jobs, those programming jobs. 75% of programmers in Silicon Valley right now are on H-1B visas, and it's just disgusting. Yeah, they told everybody go
Yeah.
learn how to code, and then gave all those coding jobs to foreigners. It's so appalling. And
Yeah.
there was like a taboo on talking about that until Donald Trump showed up and was like, what are we even doing? Although this week's, he wasn't so great
I
on
Oh
know.
boy.
the H-1Bs. I don't know what he was thinking there. I will say, I do think that some of this whole, like, I mean, I want to be careful how I say this, but certainly in the case of Mamdani, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the support came from these 20 and 30 somethings who have multiple degrees and student loan
Mm-hmm.
debt. And I feel sorry for them. I do. Like, they were told, take out this debt, get this education, you'll be fine. But there's also a real antipathy for labor in that class. They
Yes.
think they're the proletariat because, they're renters, and but they
Right.
also spend like $12 on like an oat milk latte. And
Yes.
all of those people could get jobs in, just lower status jobs if they wanted to. They
Mm-hmm.
don't really believe in work. Like, that's why they're socialists, because they want the government to subsidize their podcast,
Mm.
basically. And I think that is like, that's not a proletariat, because there's a lot of
No.
working class people who are like working 2-3 jobs and like have like just the worst health care and are just struggling to put food on the table. And it's just such a like people who really believe in work and really believe in America. And there's this conflation happening because I feel like on the right, the discourse is really focused on something like Turning Point. You know, these are the young men of the next generation. Those kids are all in college. Like, what percentage of college students do you think are conservatives? Like, that's not the right's constituency. And then, by the way, this is just another thing I just keep thinking about. Like, then they're surprised that those people are following like Nick Fuentes. It's because they're not conservatives; they're progressives, like that. Like, you know what I mean? I feel like there's just this like erasure happening because like the right is the working class, but the people who are speaking for like young men are just, I feel like, really divorced from like what actual working class male life is like. Okay, do you guys agree with me or not?
I completely agree with you. In fact, this is something that we've been talking about over the past month and a half, I think, as we've really since Charlie Kirk was murdered and then left this space, and Nick Fuentes has really filled that gap in a bad way. And this is something we've been talking about a lot and going through some of his videos and explaining like, hey, look, this is the rhetoric, but let me tell you, I'm not saying he's Hitler, I'm not saying he's Mao, I'm not saying he's Lenin. But he sounds like Lenin. He sounds like Mao. This is Rudy Dutska's Long March Through the Institutions. He's telling you to pretend like you're something that you're not, infiltrate, and then become a leader in the political movement. And like, these are things, they're not new. These are things that have been tried, and these are things that have been practiced before. And he's a neo-Marxist is what he is, 100%. He deals in sophistry. He deals in collectivism. He will, and the crazy thing with sophistry is when I talk to people about him, like the other day, I had a conversation with a good friend and we were talking. I said, well, what policies does Nick actually talk about? And so he sends me Nick's website and I read it. I said, there are 0 policies on this. He's like, what do you mean? Screenshots me the paragraph. I said, actually, this is just vibes. I was like, this is not policy. He's like, this is a pathway, right? And I said, it's not a pathway because there's no mechanisms. All he's doing is blaming a group of people and saying a general thing that we all agree with. We agree, America first. We agree, bring back principled people in this country. We can all agree on that. But you know what, man? Like, this is not an actual ideology. It is a collectivist that's blaming other people for problems, and they don't see that. It's like they miss the forest for the trees when he says certain things. It's really quick. It's like, there it is. And then the rest, you're like, I totally agree with that. And because you can say you kind of agree with some of the things he says. I agree that we need to be America first. I agree foreign interest in the U.S. government is a problem. I agree that colleges have been ideologically captured. I don't agree that blacks are the problem. I don't agree that Jews are the problem. Like, these are collectivist ideologies that he preaches, and people get lost in that, I think. Totally. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Batya. Yeah.
No, I absolutely agree with you too. And you're actually the first voice that I heard. I think you were doing a spot on, I can't remember if it was Newsmax or Fox News, but highlighting the fact that there's a such thing as a Donald Trump / Mamdani voter. Yeah. And like, if you don't figure this out, you know, like because you just made the point again so poignantly, right? That it's like, this is not your constituency. You are tapping into, you know, populist notions that's resonating with people, but it is because it's like, what are these young people upset about? What is their main thing? It's affordability. And we already hit on the fact that they don't feel like they have upward mobility. You know, they're getting stuck in a class system that's further locking them in. And Donald Trump was able to, you know, to communicate to them and reach out to them. And he pulled a lot of people across the aisle, but then immediately pivoted toward his foreign policy that's these young people don't care about. They just don't. And when they see
most
people,
of them don't even see China as an enemy.
Right. And when they see the right now arguing, you know, about who's right, Mark Levine or, you know, Tucker Carlson over the issue about this country, like they don't care. They're tuning you out. They're like, what are you going to do about my rent? At least this guy says he's going to try to freeze it. At least this guy says he's going to, you know, try and get me into a bus and the fare is going to go down and things like this. And so because of it, yeah, you had this huge switch of people that are like, I'll vote for him, you know, in the White House, but I'm going to turn turn around and vote for him in the city because I just want my life to be cheaper.
That's
And
it.
if they don't figure it out, and I've been trying to get behind this message with you because I think you see it so clearly that it's like, please, federal level politicians, if you don't figure this out, the midterms, the next 2028 election, you are going to lose the country to people that are like, you know what, I'm done with it. Let's go ahead and try this socialism thing.
Totally. And I think it used to be like the right could sort of rely on an issue like, abortion or what have you to make conservatives feel like, well, we don't really have an option anymore. Like we can't vote for the left. Like they believe in 9th-month abortions. But now after in the like post Roe v. Wade world where it's like, well, it's state by state, there are referendums. And also young people are just like so much less motivated by these like old school cultural issues. Like most young people just like support gay marriage. Like that fight's over, like there's nothing really left for the right culturally, I feel like, to hang their hat on. It's obvious that the country is against the trans issue, which is also in retreat. And so like it's just like, so you guys are totally right. Like it's all up for grabs at this point, and you have to offer people a better life. And I do think Trump has really good ideas for that. I do think he's working really hard on it, but his plans are very long term, like the tariff dividends. You got to build factories that takes years. And so it's like, the question is, to me, does he have a political runway, or is that going to run out real quick when people feel like, even though he stabilized inflation, but he wasn't able to reverse some of the Biden. And honestly, I don't know that he's going to be able to. I really, a lot of it has to do with interest rates. A lot of it has to do with other factors like, drought and what have you. And so the question to me is like, are the American people going to give him that runway to keep trying and to see, can this pay off? Or are they just going to be like, look, I'm willing to try the other thing because I can't stand the fact that a frozen pizza is $10.
I really like that question because Chris and I had a conversation a while back about these long-term plans that Donald Trump is trying to put into place. And we keep saying that, look, there's going to be growing pains with this. It's going to kind of suck for a while. Like this divestment from the Chinese model of manufacturing is going to hurt. And unfortunately, this didn't happen 15 years ago when it really should have happened 15 years ago. And now we're in a place where people don't care. I need a solution now. You cannot tell me I need to wait 10 years for us to get mining and manufacturing and a re-industrialization back in the United States. I can't wait for that. I have children. I have a job. I have debt. All these things, they have gotten so bad. And really, your question about is he going to run out of runway? Like, I kind of think he's at the end of that runway unless something does happen. And maybe there's a shift to, I don't want to say rhetoric, but like he needs to be more focused on people and talking about these issues and trying to find a solution, because right now I don't hear a solution. And when there are no ideas, you're leaving room for mostly bad ideas. You have to enter that space and try something. Like even if you wind up with egg on your face at first, right? Like you have to try. Like this is no one cares about anything else. They care that they can't afford groceries. They care that they can't afford whatever. That's it. I don't think there is a runway, really.
I do. I think it's a very, very short runway, and I think that he is uniquely in a place, being a termed out president, to be able to do this. But it would take a hell of a lot of political will. He's going to take the hit for it. But I think that the only path forward for him is to double and triple down on his immigration stance, and just to be like, hey, we're not going to stop now at criminals. Like if you're here in the country illegally, Tom Homan, there they are. Go get them. Like 50 million deportations. Sorry, the United States is closed for business. And of course, the media is gonna run with Trump separating children from families and anything else that they can try to come up with. But what's gonna happen? It's gonna open up apartments. It's gonna open up housing. Businesses are going to have to hire Americans instead of cheap foreign labor, and so wages go up, housing costs are going to come down, and I think that if he does it hard, decisively, doesn't go soft on it, right, and follows through, I think most Americans are going to like pick their heads up in 6 months of that and look around and go, oh, hey, the costs are kind of coming down. Oh, Like,
Well, I think the
you
biggest
know what I mean?
problem with
Just
that is
kind
that
of.
Totally
private
agree.
equity will have the first shot at purchasing up these
It's not a
homes
perfect
and
plan by any
buildings.
means. Yeah.
No, and that's kind of what I'm saying. I like that plan, but they're going to have a shot at taking up that space. And this is a goal of theirs, like we've talked about too, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're even purchasing boomer life insurance and giving them a payout so that when it does pay out, they
I know.
collect that money. Like that is a problem that has to be that might be probably one of the best things for him to go after right now, like Vanguard, State Street, BlackRock, going after these, and Teddy Roosevelt style trust busting, going after them and saying you have to protect the middle class. Like, look at what happened in LA with the Palisades fire. There's a bunch of land, there's no homes there anymore, and if you go and look, a lot of that land has been bought up by international real estate agents, and they cooperate with stateside rental agencies, and realtor agencies, and they buy this land. They buy some of these homes that you're not allowed to go back to, and people are losing. Like, this is a problem here, and that is something that needs to stop. And he could stop, and he should go after and say, you shouldn't. International countries should not be buying land here right now. Should not be buying property here right now. We don't need. This is not something we need. And he should be going after that, and he should be going after private equity. I think if you stop that and you go after it and you make a real show of force and are effective at it, I think that is a strong enough message to the middle class, because you can exhibit really well how much private equity is eroding the middle class. And I mean, that might be a vector, so to speak, to go after and show that you're loyal to your message. I'm here for the working class person who's being driven out. You know, the gap even between the upper middle class now and the upper class has gotten way wider. And that might be a way to do that. But I think your plan, Chris, is a good one if you can stop private equity from filling up that void, because that's what's going to happen.
Sure.
Yeah, definitely. When you guys hear like JD Vance talk about these things, do you feel like he kind of is speaking, the truth, or do you feel like he's kind of a phony? Where do you guys fall on that guy?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Um, I'll say I have some legitimate worries about JD Vance, like veteran to veteran, like I like him. I like that he was a Marine. I like what I see from him. I worry about some of his connections too, like Peter Thiel being one of them, coming off that tree. I worry about, have you ever read Nick Land's essay called The Dark Enlightenment before? If you haven't,
Good.
you should. So this concept of technocracy is really laid out very well in Nick Land's essay, and the model that I see Palantir talking about, this sort of, I mean, it exists already in China, right? The CCP has mastered the surveillance state. And if you go and read Nick Land's essay, you'll see very much that the model that he outlines there, where you treat the country like a corporation, and the president is like a CEO, right? Who has which is a tyrannical position, right? When you look at it, there's not really a board in his concept. That's exactly sort of what is being moved toward. And I've listened to some of JD's older speeches before he was the vice president, chubby JD, I like to say, but back when he was, I'm just saying, but he seems to be sort of in favor of that model. I don't necessarily see him as a true conservative. I don't know. That's my biggest worry with him. I worry that we're moving towards a much larger surveillance state, and I think that he is somebody who has enough of that influence to where he could be, an usher, so to speak, if that makes sense.
I think that he represents a lot of the good things about Trump, minus a lot of the things that make Trump so polarizing. So to me, like he's going to be a formidable candidate going through the primary season, and I'm calling for, and I want a robust, like just cutthroat, drag him out Republican primary. I think that it needs to happen for the survival of the American First movement, MAGA, like whatever you want to call it. And a lot of this is going to get sussed out there. But yeah, I have all the same concerns that you have, that you just stated, Brandon. And then on top of that, it's like I want to hear him kind of come out more on like where he stands on this H-1B thing. I think that he does a pretty good job kind of massaging and walking back the president's statements when he steps in it, like he did this week. But I would really like to. Yeah, but I would really like to see him get nailed down, right, on where he lines up on some of these points that seem to be getting walked back by the Trump administration right now. That would help my determination a lot more.
Is there somebody else that you guys have your eye on who you think would make a good president?
Ooh, that's an interesting question. Man, I can't tell you that there is anybody out there right now that I'm like, that is solid. I
Right.
see anybody that they would float out there as somebody who's already a part of that, the administration right now. Like I keep seeing the talks about like a Rubio Vance or a Gabbard Vance or a Gabbard Rubio, whatever. I don't think that's going to be good enough. I think historically vice presidents don't do well when they run for president. I think there's been like 18 that have run, and I think only it's like 4 or something like that have been successful. So this is just my feeling. I don't think if he ran, he would win. I don't think he's gonna run. I think that they realize enough now that he sort of represents, because people are very, very visual. Like ontologically, he looks like what people don't want to see. He's married to somebody, and I'm not saying this is my opinion. I'm saying this is what people see. He's married to somebody who is who's Indian, and people see that group of people as others who are coming in and taking their jobs. And this is something that he gets poked in the eye for, I think unfairly, but like optics for whatever reason matter a hell of a lot more to people than they should, I think. I tend to lean more towards liking JD Vance, but I just don't see him as the future. And they haven't done a good job either, to your point, Chris, about running him out there as somebody and letting him sort of have an opinion. Like he has one, but it's not a primary. He has no primacy, I guess I should say, and it's really hard to get that in edgewise with an ego personality as big as Donald Trump. But I just, do you see anybody, Batya? Because I can't. Nobody comes to mind right now.
It's funny because
it was not a really good thought.
I think whenever I start to feel like he's kind of untrustworthy, I remember that he's married to this wonderful, brilliant woman who seems like, really like a stabilizing force. I will say, when I went to vote during the mayoral election in New York, it was a big bummer because, the candidates were all horrible. And
true.
I was voting, I was so bummed out, and I walked out of the polling place and I was like, why am I so bummed out? And then it hit me because I'm never going to get to vote for Trump again. It's not just that these were bad candidates, but it's that when I went to vote for Trump in 2024, the euphoria of voting for someone who had promised to do everything I would have promised to do if I was running for president. And now, a year later, to have him actually have done a lot of it, not everything, it's not been perfect, but on immigration, on trade, to just to give Wall Street the middle finger the way he did on April 2nd, to say to them so clearly, you can throw a hissy fit, I don't care, I don't work for you. That was euphoric for me. An exercise of power to that degree, to tell the entire global market, screw you. And it's just that feeling we're never going to get to do that again. There's never going to, it's a big bummer.
It is. I worry about the pendulum swing the other way.
Not that this matters too very much, right? But if you would have asked me that question 3 months ago, I would have told you Charlie Kirk.
Yeah,
totally. 100%. I would have said that. And but it's here we are now. I still like, just from a governing standpoint, DeSantis. But I think he used up a lot of his political capital getting swatted down by Trump. Maybe there's an avenue there for him since Trump's not on the ballot.
I know that he's.
People
have told me he's planning to run. It's people who. I wouldn't be surprised. I think he's probably.
I think he'd be a good president.
Right. I think he'd be a good.
I do too. From an administration standpoint,
run a better campaign this time around. He didn't understand last time around the economic piece of it. I think he thought people love Trump because they hate woke. And I think the truth is working class people hate woke. They don't vote on it because they're just too they're broke. Like they don't have
Right.
time to be like, I'm gonna pick the guy who's fighting the trans. Like they don't
Right.
like trans. They don't have the mental energy or capacity to vote on that. And I think he didn't get
Right.
that like the immigration thing is an economic thing. Like it's like.
Yes.
So I think that he'll hopefully do better this time. I love what you said, Chris, about it being like utterly imperative for there to be like a knockdown, drag out primary.
Yeah.
Let's have all the fights, like it's great. And honestly, the Democrats is going to be so brutal, and I'm so here for it. Like I just cannot wait to see them start to like knife each other because they're so freaking mean.
Yeah.
Right.
It's true.
Well,
I do have to
who's a
say,
moderate?
I do
Go ahead.
like AOC. I don't think she's going to run for president because I don't think she can win, but I think I find her very genuine, and like unlike a lot of the people in that, like a lot of the others in the squad, like I think she does really care about people. Like she's not quite like, and like to me, Mom Donnie's just an actor. Like it's all just theater kid. Like it's just performance art, But yeah, what were you gonna ask me? Who I think on the left or on the right?
Yeah, because I mean, to me, on the left, I was going to say, because I don't like AOC. I think she's way too extreme and committed to her socialist principles. But who's a moderate Democrat? Speaking of moderate Democrats, I hope John Fetterman's okay. What happened to him today? But like, who on the left do you see as a moderate leader? Because I mean, really, he's the only one that comes to my mind.
So both
It could be
Mikey
because we need that.
Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger are Blue Dog Dems. Sherrill was in the Navy. Spanberger was in the CIA. They're both moderates. Like the Fox News paints them as like radicals because like Spanberger didn't want to commit on the trans thing because she didn't want to alienate the far left base. But they are both like they were in the problem solvers caucus. They reach across the aisle a lot, and they were focused on affordability. I think you'll probably see like a Newsom Sherrill ticket on the Democratic side in 2028. He's horrible. He's just disgusting. He's such a slimy, like nothing he says is real, and it's just so gross. And the thing about California is like, oh, it's just so disgusting. He'll be like, they're coming for our neighbors, and what he means is like they're coming for our slaves. Like they're coming for the guy in the Home Depot parking lot. It's like, yeah, your slave. You know what I mean? The guy that you pay $3 an hour to do your landscaping so you don't have to pay an American $18. Like, it's so gross. It's so out there. But yeah, I think the two of them, Josh Shapiro is very moderate.
I was going to ask you about him.
The thing about him is like, he's obviously been like preparing to run for president since he was like 12 years old. And that's obviously, there's something kind of gross about that. To me personally, like, I don't like to, there's something off-putting about that, but he's very moderate. He only lost the white working class in Pennsylvania by 2 points last time he ran, meaning he got 48% of white working class Pennsylvanians to vote for him. He's really efficient, and he's really good at deregulation, and he's really good at building stuff. So they had something caved on one of the major highways in Pennsylvania, and they said it would take like 2 years to fix it, and he got it done in 12 days. So that's kind of what you want to see. And he is a moderate. The problem is like it's really hard to imagine that the Democrats are going to vote for a Jewish person. Like they're so anti-Semitic at this point. They're just so freaking anti-Semitic. Like they just wouldn't vote for him because he's pro-Israel and a Jew. So I don't really know. I don't see the lane for him.
I think young people in general are getting fatigued on the Semitism argument. Like that's kind of what I see. And it's the political class's fault because one is using it as a cudgel on one side and then the other is free Palestine on the other. And so it's like a lot of people are just getting fatigued out of it, and that's another thing that they need to figure out. Like wherever you line up on the issue, person out there watching, but they need to figure that out. But the other person I wanted to ask you about besides Josh Shapiro was Andrew Yang. Do you think that would be no?
Here's my thing about Andrew Yang. So in America you have the quadrants, right? So you have kind of like socially conservative, economically conservative, liberal, social it's like one is economics and one is social, right?
Socially and economically.
Centrist in the middle, yeah.
So you have like, in this quadrant, you have people who are economically liberal and socially liberal. So that's like the progressives, right? It's like trans agenda,
Yep.
and then, everything that, redistribution, raise taxes, blah, blah, blah. Now coupled weirdly with
Right.
this open borders thing. Okay, then here you have people who are like economically conservative and socially conservative, right? So they're like, it's really actually it's hard because Trump really messed with all of this, right? Because he's a protectionist. He's not really a trickle down. But they're like, okay, people who like really subscribe to the Republican agenda, who like want like that free trade thing and are like religious people. Okay. Then here you have, so there's a third here and a third here. Here's the libertarian quadrant, okay, which is kind of where Andrew Yang is. So it's like socially liberal, economically conservative, right? So these are people who are like, trans rights, gay rights, blah, 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 feminism, yada, 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 anti-racism, Ibrahim Kendi, all that crap. But then also we want free trade, we want like, more immigration, blah, blah, blah. There's 3% of Americans are here, okay? So you've got like 30%, 30%, 3%, and then the remaining third are in the Trump quadrant, which is socially conservative, economically liberal, meaning like they want government to work harder for them. They don't believe in free trade. Like they want more of a government, they believe in raising taxes on the rich, but then also they're religious and they're socially conservative. They don't like the trans stuff. They're like, that's a third, right? So you have the each one has a third of the population, except there's nobody in that libertarian quadrant. And that's where Andrew Yang is. So that's my problem with people who come out, like that's the Reason magazine. It's really well funded. Like the Koch brothers, very well, funded, but it's not like, I don't really know a lot of Americans who are there, especially because in Trump's quadrant, he really sort of took down the temperature on the social conservatism. So like, he's not pro-life. Like it's obvious. Like he totally made a mockery of heritage during the election. They kept being like, we are Project 2025. We are going to staff the White House. And Trump was like, I don't know you. Project 2025. Who are you?
I'm not affiliated with you.
I'm not affiliated with you.
I don't know how many times he said it.
Exactly.
Right, yeah.
So he supports gay marriage. He took the anti-gay marriage language out of the Republican 2024 platform. He's, thinks that abortion should be legal for 12 weeks or whatever. So he took down the temperature on what it, so then really people started to flock there. And now you even have leftists admitting that his economic agenda was like, I mean, I talk about this all the time, like 10% stake in Intel. This is the stuff of Bernie Sanders' wet dreams. Like the tariffs, they kept saying to us, like the tariffs are going to be a tax on the American worker. You know who they ended up being a tax on? The American corporation. They've eaten all the $200 billion in tariffs eaten by greedy corporations. This is the stuff of AOC's dreams. She could never have gotten that through. Like that is a massive, it's a tax on greedflation. That's what Trump did. I don't think he knew he was doing this, but during the pandemic, they raised prices because of supply chain crises. And then the supply chain crises ended and they never brought them down. So they raised them prices by 20% and kept them there. That was just eaten by the tariffs. That's why they haven't raised prices, because they knew that they were artificially high because of all of that greedflation. So Trump's like, it's just amazing. And he gets no credit for it. No credit for it whatsoever.
Well, he never
Drug
gets credit
prices,
for anything good.
like, do you know how, like, Democrat after Democrat after Democrat promised to bring down the cost of drugs, promised to get us most favored nation pricing. They could never have done it. The thing is, he's doing it maybe in a way that you guys wouldn't approve of, because he is just he's like a mob boss. So like Walmart will say, I'm sorry, like they'll whisper, I'm sorry, we're gonna have to raise prices, and he just picks up the phone and is like, don't you effing dare. And then they're like, okay, sorry, we're not gonna raise prices after all. He's just like, and it's just, I think it's great, but it's like, if I didn't agree with what he was doing, I'd probably feel less good about it.
Well, it's funny too, because this is exactly what you were just saying 10 minutes ago about how no one like him will ever exist. There's nobody else that I see that has that sort of mob boss power. Trump is literally almost a relic of an old America that doesn't exist anymore. You are never, I don't see ever going to see somebody like a Trump ever again. Let's not forget 30 years ago, Trump was a Democrat, right? That
Right.
right now, the Overton window has shifted so far that the conservative hero, and who has been for the past 10 years, basically, is Donald Trump, somebody who used to be a Democrat.
Right.
I don't know anybody that has the bravado that he does. His bravado does remind me so much of my favorite president, Teddy Roosevelt. Don't see anybody like that at all anymore. That's what I'm going to miss so much. I will miss the bully pulpit. I will miss the phone calls. I will miss Trump's work ethic. I will miss the fact that he does go after Wall Street, even though he gets blamed for being this huge defender of Wall Street. They don't see it the way that you articulate so well. It's a shame. It's a shame. And whoever replaces him, man, it's going to be hard to live under that, and live in that shadow, so to speak. And I think that that'll add a hefty amount of disappointment to whomever fills in those shoes or tries to fill those shoes in. But, can I just say real fast, and I know you got to get going here. A book I talk about all the time is Freedom's Forge. And we've talked about Re-Industrialization. If you're familiar with the book Freedom's Forge, it's about William Knudsen, Big Bill Knudsen, and the way that he industrialized the United States. He took 12 million Americans, most of who had never stepped foot into a factory, standardized the practices, and built the America's war engine during World War II. There are people that exist in Trump's sphere right now who can do that and revitalize American industrial. If he just took the leash off those guys and used the bully pulpit to go after the regulation and said, I don't give a fuck. We're doing this, and let the Jared Isaacsmans go out there and do what they want to do and need to do. And he goes after and lets people like Palmer Luckey and Elon Musk just go after these places and revitalize American industry. Like that, I think would be, it's like you said, it takes a while to do these things, but at the end of the day, it's never cutting corners that provides longevity. It's digging in and it's working hard, and it's the pain you have to go through to wind up with the foundation. My question to you, I guess, here is, do you think something like that is going to be part of the legacy that Trump leaves behind, the foundation for American reindustrialization?
I do. Yeah, I do think so. I think he'll get like trillions of dollars committed from foreign governments, and then the Democrats will say, oh, we're not going to see any of it. But then if you talk to like Howard Lutnick, you'll say, oh, what's going on with this trade deal? And he's like, well, it's being held up because we want to make sure that commitment is real. So I'm really hoping that it is. I do think it is. I think he's just driven by, I don't know, the kind of drive I guess you get when they try to kill you for saving your country. And
no shit.
so I hope he I hope he is successful. I have to run, but God bless you guys.
No, yeah.
Thank you for
so
your
much.
service
God
to
bless
this
you, bud.
country, and thank you so much for having me. And Brendan, we'll touch base about the other matter, the op-ed.
Yes.
I'm sorry that I've been so busy, but thank
Don't
you
be
so
sorry,
much.
dude. You have a Trump work ethic for sure. You're always on, and you're here with us. So, no, awesome. Thank you, Batya, for your time. I look forward to this coming out. I'll let you know when.
Such a pleasure talking to you guys. Thank you so much. God bless.
That's awesome. Appreciate it.
Yeah, you too. Take care, Batya.